so the new CEO is going around building up all this goodwill, and it's working. Everyone's like loves the guy, loves the attitude he's got. There's some changes that we're starting to see, like the line is a little more streamlined. Like it's very clear. They're like, okay, you want a Les Paul? We're going to give you a Les Paul, and there's only like 3 variations if you want like a real classic one or a fancy modern one or like the in between those, like, and that's kind of it. And then the prices have come down a little bit, so they're more kind of where they should be. So this is all going really well for them. And then their new this guy he used to work for Norman's Rare Guitars, Mark Agnesi. I guess he did all their like YouTube stuff, and I guess Gibson hired them to help with the sort of rehabilitation of the brand. But he, I guess, did the opposite, because he posted this video. Okay. Director of brand experience. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I kept thinking, like, is it brand strategy? Is it brand content? And I couldn't remember which variation on like a new job that hasn't existed for more than 5 years. Brand experience. And so the experience that he wants to give you is, if you are anybody, if you're considering playing a Gibson that's not 100% authentic, Gibson's coming for you. That's the experience that Gibson wants you to have now. So they took, okay, so Mark Agnesi, director of brand experience, made a video talking at length about the slogan / title was play authentic. So the idea is Gibson came up with all the stuff that you know Gibson for, and all of those things, down to a lot of really small details, are Gibson trademarks, by the way. And then some really fishy comments about, like, we're not trying to bully anybody and we're not trying to mess with the boutique market, but at the same time, and then that's where he like threatens them. Like, it's basic. Unfortunately, the video's already been taken down, and I just saw clips of it in other people's YouTube videos complaining about how dumb it was. But I think okay, let's see. Gibson post controversial YouTube. Oh yeah, you have been warned, he said. We're looking out, and we're here to protect our iconic legacy. We're looking out. So, and like, I wish, again, the only copy of this video I could find right now has really bad audio. Like, we can watch some of it anyway, but it's funny because during the one line where you're like, was that a threat? His voice cracks, and you're like, yeah, I feel like he knew, like, it sounded a little wrong as he said it. So, you know, he's just talking about how amazing and iconic all the guitars are.
It's never been out of production. The only Gibson solid body guitar.
The Flying V, the Explorer, they're mentioning these shapes. They're like just basically listing their intellectual property.
This is about protecting our legacy. 125 years of innovation, protecting, and it's our
125 years of relevance. I don't know if I would say you get all 125 for relevance, because that's kind of the question right now.
And we will continue. It goes back to what we started talking about: being original and playing authentic.
Playing authentic, which is definitely a thing. After so like, clearly this was intentionally a preface for the lawsuit that basically was announced like the next day. Like, I mean, I'm sure they had to file it a lot earlier, but like, they must have known the day that was going to go public, and so they're prefacing it with this to try to spin it as like, this is just because we're so authentic that we have to make sure nobody's guitars are remotely similar, and then nobody's doing a better version of our thing, which is what everybody's kind of, a lot of people feel like that's what's been going on for years. It's just, as long as you don't mind the headstock being a little different shape. And we'll get to why that is, because there's a lot of legal precedents. This is another reason this is very silly and just dumb on a lot of fronts. So they announced this lawsuit, but when he posted this video, they hadn't announced it yet. So it's so this must have sounded even weirder without that context. There's a little bit of a like, we want to work with you, so come to us. It's basically saying like, if you know that you're violating Gibson's intellectual property, then it's all cool. We can work something out. You know, if you did it and you know you did it and you come clean, we won't be mad. We'll work out some kind of arrangement. But if you don't, and that's where, like, let's see if I can catch the
film and television and commercial industry. Reach out to us. We want to work with you.
Yeah, they're cracking down on
And the designs that we've created.
I don't know how movies are violating the cut by not like by having like a Gibson in the movie or something. Like, wouldn't that would be what you want? Because they could just use somebody else's guitar. Why would you? It doesn't. Nobody cares.
Stop taping over the logos on the headstock. By the way, that's not enough.
Yeah.
To get
So
out of the trade.
they even claim they're not going after the boutique industry, but like everybody's the boutique industry outside of like the three big mega corporations, and they're suing Dean, which is like, so first of all, Dean's not real. Nobody's like going, do I get a Gibson or a Dean? Two, what are you suing them for? Dean doesn't have any money, and they're probably as much in the hole as Gibson. Well, maybe not as much in the hole as Gibson because just the size of but, and then finally, like, so they've been, because like Dean makes V's and Explorer type shapes, and so part of it is they're going after them for that. It's actually the company that owns Dean, which I think is actually like, you know, a big list of brands.
Contact us. We want to work with you. We want to be partners with you. We want to help bring authenticity to your projects. And this isn't about us trying to
Bring authenticity to your so basically, so there was so the other historical precedent for this is that Fender pulled this shit in the 80s, I think, or maybe late 70s. And what happened was they sued a bunch of people. There was a big settlement, and then after that, if you use the Fender headstock, you have to like license it from them, or you have to just change the headstock. And I think it was like 10% or so. So you see like a lot of headstocks that are 10 to 30% like varied from a Fender. That's why there are all those not quite Fender headstocks, but they still want you to think it's a Strat, you know, and like, it's a Strat, but it's not a Fender. And the not Fender Strat market is huge, just like the not Gibson Les Paul market.
bullies or
Get through
trying to
this.
stifle the boutique marketplace.
We're not trying to
This is
stifle the
about
boutique
protecting our legacy. 125 years of innovation and relevance.
Okay, 125 years of maybe like 50 years of innovation, and then like some other years of like we kept making guitars.
Music. It's worth protecting.
And some of the innovations were not worth protecting, like the robot tuners that they will never speak of again. I'm sure you won't hear anyone. They probably have like a corporate policy of we don't talk about the robot tuners anymore, especially because that company, I think, was also suing them.
And it's our job, and we will continue to fight to protect.
Anyway, so there's a huge backlash about that because Gibson surprisingly doesn't understand the internet. And so Fender sued everybody in the 80s and won, but they weren't able to police the body shape. Like there's already too many people making Strats, and from what I heard, that they said that they had already been doing it. Too many people had already been doing it for too long for them to then cut it off and say they couldn't use the body shape. So that's why the Strat body shape is everywhere and everybody can make it. But so this is like a fairly serious legal precedent that Gibson would have to go up against now. Yes, and the DiMarzio double creep, and I think like they own the like somebody owns the zebra stripe, I think maybe too. But which is so I think it's maybe Seymour Duncan owns the zebra stripe, and they're like nobody else has it. I'm like nobody else wants it. But anyway, so Fender sued everybody, and they were like, okay, people have to change the headstocks, and like they had to do like a one-time payout or whatever. But so that's a precedent, and so Gibson's trying to say that Dean's like headstocks on their Les Paul type guitars are too close, and it's fairly ridiculous. It's like it's the same amount different, at least. Like that is like they're not gonna. I know there's a more subtle one they have somewhere. I don't know what their Les Paul model is called because. Oh yeah, here we go. So like that's not more in the ballpark, but like clearly they're making it different enough. It's like even though the lawsuit was for Fender headstocks, everybody else clearly started playing by those rules, which is like, and then even actually with the body shapes, people don't use an exact Explorer body, or occasionally they'll do the classic flying V shape, but so it's kind of like everybody's already playing by those rules, and Gibson's just like, no, we're gonna. They want to re-fight. So my guess is that this is really more a strategic thing. They're trying to probably, because it doesn't seem like they could win that, and so they're either trying to like, bully them into settling, or simply bully them into just like changing things to get them to drop the lawsuit and to make their competitors less similar to their guitars. But it's already dumb and pointless because it's really like, again, they clearly didn't know how people were going to react to it because they immediately had to take the video down. And like there's a lot of speculation as to whether the CEO knew about it, because he seemed to be doing such a good job of garnering goodwill with the community, and like mainly meaning like dealers like in stores and people who sell them. And also everybody is like, and they're just greedy. It's like, no, they're a corporation. So like their goal is to make a profit. And by the way, Gibson is in a huge amount of debt. And so like, yeah, they need money. They need a lot of money, or they're not going to exist for very long. And then the companies they owe money to, like Guitar Center, and other like it's. So like, yeah, Gibson wants money and they want it bad, and like I don't know why people are surprised by that. But there's a lot of better ways anyway. So it seems like maybe it's just part of a strategy to try to like they probably, despite being in debt, they may have better resources than Dean in terms of being able to like drag out a legal thing and get them to back off. Let's see. They requested a jury trial, so maybe their strategy is to convince a handful of rogues that people buying a Dean are. Yeah, that's a good point. They might be able, and so it's probably just to, like, they probably thought this was going to go a lot different with the video. The video is probably to kind of like set the tone, because again, he was like, we're not trying to mess with the boutique industry, and we're not trying to bully anybody. And then everyone's like, you're bullying people and trying to mess with the boutique industry. That's what we definitely feel like you're doing. They telegraphed the things they were afraid people were going to think, and then correctly, that's what people thought. Because, yeah, that, and like also because it was a lawsuit, not just like, here's a video about, don't forget, a real Gibson's a real Gibson. They're like, but everybody else also better watch out. But the positive side of this is that it's leading things towards my ideal society, which is where all legal disputes are settled with wrestling promos. And so like I'm hoping this will escalate into like, because for just a brief moment it was like, listen up, other guitar manufacturers. When our customers step into a Guitar Center, they want to see a real Gibson. But yeah, like I really think there's a lot of other, like they're not even targeting the real competition. Like a lot, like every YouTube video of somebody saying this is messed up has been citing ESP, which is interesting because ESP, like their Les Paul, their single cut, as it were, it has very little in common with the Gibson ones. Like it's rarely the same kind of like body mass, or I don't even know if it's a set neck most of the time, but they're occasionally they'll make one that's more traditional, but they're very different anyway. So it's like not the same scale. It's a weird comparison, but everybody's maybe that's actually a better argument in the lawsuit, because apparently people think it's the same thing just because it's a single cut. Which brings to mind the other legal precedent, which is that Gibson already tried suing PRS for their single cut models a while back and also lost. And so like PRS didn't sell single cuts for a while. Gibson didn't win the lawsuit, and now you can get single cut PRSs again. Anyway, so that's what Gibson's up to.